Hey, Slider Crusaders, America is the greatest country in the world. Let me say it again just to be clear. America is the greatest country in the world. I need to make that clear because it seems like every day, more and more Americans and businesses are selling out to the Chinese. How many more Americans need to sell out to the commies before we, the people, just willingly vote to become a part of China? We're just China West or whatever, right? New China over here. John Cena, the wrestler, now actor, he's the latest to sell out. Before we give the background on John Cena and what he did, I got a general question for you. Will people sell out for money, or are people more inclined to do the right thing? Right? Will people sell out or do the right thing? Most people will sell out. Almost everybody will sell out if the price is right, right? Are people guided by morals or by money? Money. You wouldn't sell out, of course. You would always do the right thing. No matter how much money is being flashed in front of your face, you would always do the right thing under every circumstance, no matter what. Of course you would. No one else would. So we'll talk about John Cena here. And I want to come to, I don't want this to be John Cena's defense, but I want to understand what he's doing and where he's coming from. We like to think that the more money we have, the more we would say, no, I would stand up for the truth. But that's not true. The more money you have, the bigger of a machine you have around you, the more people who rely on you for their livelihoods. Therefore, the easier it is to justify a little immoral thing over here and a little immoral thing over there. Because you say to yourself, well, I have to do it. Otherwise, all these people who are relying on me will lose their incomes. All these people who are counting on me will lose their incomes. They won't be able to put food on the table. We tell ourselves, oh, if I made a little bit more money, then I would blank, right? Once I made $10 million, then if I made $10 million, then I would, whatever that, right? Give money to charity, donate to this event, spend less time worrying about money. It's not true. If you don't do the thing you should do now, then you won't do it later, no matter how much money you later have. You with me? If you don't do the thing you should do now, you're never going to do it later, no matter how much money you have. If you make $100,000 now and you don't give to charity, you could tell yourself all day long, well, I would if I made $100 million. No, you wouldn't. And the flip of that is if you're generous with $100,000, then you would be very generous in giving if you had $100 million as well. But you got to be that moral person now. You can't say, oh, well, I would be moral later. You got to be moral now. Anyway, that's just some background points. Here's what John Cena did. Again, John Cena, WWE wrestler, now actor and general famous person. Here he is the other day on the big Chinese social media app. Here's what he did.
对不起，我很抱歉，你必须了解，我很爱、很尊重中国跟中国人，不好意思。
Yeah, okay. So you go, it's like a 2-minute video. What? I saw that yesterday. I said, what did I just see? So remember, one of our rules of viral videos is the first question you have to ask is it even real? We are in the very beginning of the deep fake era where you could just make up very realistic looking videos, right? So we have to train ourselves to ask ourselves, is this video even real? That was my first thought there. It's like, who knew John Cena could speak Chinese? So like, is that even a real video? What are we doing here? I want to play this video for you here. This is David Beckham. Now, David Beckham was a part of this video, and it's like a malaria PSA, right? Right? And he recorded the video, and then they changed his mouth to match up other languages, right? So this is like a sanctioned deep fake of David Beckham, but look how realistic it is.
Malaria isn't just any disease. It's the deadliest disease there's ever been.
Se dice que ha matado más de la mitad de la población que ha existido.
وما زالت تقتل طفلا كل دقيقتين.
Mais nous pouvons y mettre fin. Nous savons comment, nous en avons la possibilité.
हमें और अधिक कार्रवाई की जरूरत है.
All right, you get the idea, right? So my first thought was, oh, that's a fake. Like John Cena doesn't speak Chinese. Turns out he does speak Mandarin. He's actually really good at Mandarin, which is pretty cool, okay? So it's a real video. But then the question is, okay, what is he saying? So we got the text here. He says, "Hi, China. I'm John Cena. I'm in the middle of Fast and Furious 9 promotions. I'm doing a lot of interviews. I made a mistake in one of my interviews. Everyone was asking me if we could use Chinese. And the staff gave me a lot of information, so there was a lot of interviews and information. I made one mistake. I have to say something very, very, very important now. I love and respect China and Chinese people. I'm very, very sorry about my mistake. I apologize. I'm very sorry. You must understand that I really love, really respect China and the Chinese people. My apologies. See you." To the communists. Like, that was written by clearly the Communist Department of whatever, right? So now you're thinking, okay, what is it? So it's real. It's a real video. He's apologizing in it to China. Hi, China. What did he do? Because he doesn't say. He doesn't say what he's apologizing. He doesn't say why he's sorry. He just says he's sorry. Apparently, on May 8th, he was on the 24-hour news station in Taiwan. And he said in this interview, Taiwan will be the first country to see Fast and Furious 9. Uh-oh. To China, Taiwan is not a country. Taiwan is China. It's not a country. So China had to crack down hard on John Cena, and he had to apologize and kiss the butts of the commies. China owns all of our movie, like, I shouldn't say all. China literally owns movie production studios in LA, some of the biggest in Hollywood. Like, they literally own them. And the ones that they don't own, they have massive influence over because there's 330 million Americans and there's 1.4 billion Chinese people. I'll never forget this. It was the War of Warcraft movie a couple years back, and it bombed in America. It totally stunk it up, made no money. And then, like, the week later, it said, War of Warcraft 2 is being announced. And I'm like, hold on, it made no money. Yeah, it made no money in America. It made a ton of money in China. Hollywood's main audience is China, not America. Hollywood doesn't make movies for Americans anymore. They make movies for China. That's where all the money is. Top Gun, which was supposed to come out in 2019, it's going to come out at the end of the year here, the new Top Gun movie. This is, do we have the picture of it? This is the back of Tom Cruise's jacket. In the original, it had the flag of Taiwan. In the new one, it doesn't. Why not? Because Top Gun's not made for you. It's made for China. Back to John Cena. I would love to know what happened behind the scenes with John Cena, right? We'll never know, but it probably went something like this, right? So you have the Chinese Communist Film Council or whatever. They heard John Cena say that Taiwan's a country. That's not allowed. That's against their propaganda. They reached out to the production studio and said, hey, production studio, we got a big problem here. John Cena violated communist propaganda. If he doesn't apologize, then we're not going to show your movie to 1.4 billion people, and you're going to lose out on what, like 80% of the film's revenue, right? So the studio calls up John Cena and says, Cena, you must apologize now. Here's the communist script. You got to apologize to China or else we're not paying you. Okay, now let's say John Cena was this, and he's not, but let's say he's this big, like, pro-Taiwan freedom guy or something, right? And he says, no, I don't care, don't pay me, I got plenty of money. I believe in standing up for Taiwanese independence, and it's the right thing to do. Here's what the studio is going to come back. This is why I brought this up at the beginning of the segment. The studio is going to come back and say, great, John, we're so glad you have your moral stance. But it's not about you, John. It's not about you. Because if they don't show this movie in China, then the studio doesn't make any money. And it's not about you not getting paid. It's about all the crew. It's about the crew, the staff, the production team. Think of all the people who are going to lose out on money and their livelihoods and feeding their children, all because of your moral stance. Just do it, John. It's easy. It's simple. Just read this. It's no big deal. And Cena sells out under the pressure. When in reality, what Cena needed to do was say, no, because as soon as I sell out to the Chinese here, every other actor is going to continue to sell out forever. And pretty soon, we're all going to be speaking Chinese here, not just me. And I spoke it because it's fun and I wanted to learn a language. You're going to speak it because you're going to be forced to speak it. Someone's got to stand up against the communists now, otherwise no one ever will. That needed to be his proper response, but of course he didn't. He read the propaganda script, and here we are. This is why you see the NBA players have very strong opinions about any social issue in America. But when it comes to the concentration camps and prison labor of the Muslims in China, they have a party line. The NBA players and coaches have a party line. I need to educate myself more on this issue before I talk about it. That's the propaganda line. I will never forget this map. This is on ESPN. All right, this is just like a Sports Center. They showed this map on Sports Center. That's a map of China. Now, do you notice anything weird about that map? Anything that you don't normally see in maps? See that dotted line on the bottom of the map? That is a dotted line around the South China Sea. That is China's way of claiming that area. No one in the world recognizes that map except for the communists in China and the NBA and ESPN. Where did they get that map? It's called like the 12 dot map or something. I think it's 12 dot map or dotted map or something like that. Where did they get that? No, like if you Google map of China, that doesn't pop up. You need to intentionally seek out that map. How did they get that map? Why did they post that map? Who did they have to run that through in order to get permission to not run the other map, right? Like, how did that happen? And it's not just them. This is a clip from DreamWorks. DreamWorks is Universal. This is the movie Abominable from a couple years ago. And this is in the background. It's the same thing. It's the dotted map. Because why? Abominable wasn't made for you. It was made for the people in China. And John Cena is just the latest to fall, kissing the boots of the communists. It's super messed up, people, right? This is messed up stuff. So many companies in America have sold out to China, and they rationalize it all day long. Celebrities certainly have, even politicians. All as China takes over the world. And I'm not exaggerating. They exert their influence all over the world. They gain leverage over everyone all over the world. And they maybe they don't have more leverage over anyone in the world more than they do us. Still, remember in the beginning of COVID, we talked all about antibiotics. All of our antibiotics are made in China. Are we making any steps to not be entirely dependent on China for antibiotic production? I mean, the movies are just a microcosm. Hollywood's just a microcosm, although culture is very important. But it's everything. China's taken over the world, and we got politicians and celebrities just kissing their butts the whole time. Listen, you are a person who is prepared for anything. That's just who we are. And I mean that in every single way possible. Spiritually, you are prepared for anything. Emotionally, you're prepared. Mentally, physically. And the physically is actually the easiest of them all. That's the easiest of all the ways to be prepared, is to be physically prepared. Go to My Patriot Supply and get decked out. Right? Get everything you need. One stop, one site, one shipment, right to your front door, and you're good for 25 years. Right? I personally use My Patriot Supply. They're the best. They're the leaders. And let me tell you one side thing here too. I ordered some stuff right in the beginning of COVID, me and millions of other people. So there was obviously an unprecedented demand on My Patriot Supply in the beginning of COVID. And I got an email almost daily updating me on my order status. And they were saying, hey, here's the massive investments we made, and these warehouses and this production line and this shipment capacity. Like we're doing this and this and this to get what you need as quickly as we possibly can. Incredible customer service the whole time. They've made a special website for you, preparewiththefirst.com. And everything's up there. If nothing else, just get the 4-week supply and just be done with it. Get the 4-week supply, you get $50 off, check it off the list, keep it in the closet, the garage, the attic, whatever, and you have it forever. And in years prior, people would maybe laugh at you for it. Not anymore. I'd also buy a water filtration supply from them as well, but that's just me. Prepare with thefirst.com. Hey Slater Crusaders, have you seen the latest Project Veritas whistleblower? This time it's someone from inside Facebook. Here's the very short of it. They ran a trial, and I'm sure it's implemented now, but the trial was of 1.5% of Facebook users. But again, I'm sure it's everyone now. Everything you do on Facebook is run through the algorithm. You are a slave to it. You are at the mercy of the all-powerful and almighty and all-knowing algorithm. Praise algorithm. So the Facebook algorithm looks at what you write when it comes to the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, and they give you a numerical score based on your vaccine hesitancy. That's the term, right? So if you write on Facebook, hey everyone, the vaccine's awesome, go get it, then the algorithm ranks you and they promote that comment and they promote you because you're a good comrade. If you write on Facebook, hey, did you guys see the person who died after getting the COVID vaccine? I'm not so sure I'm going to get it. Then Facebook will rank you poorly. The algorithm ranks you poorly, and your comment doesn't show up anywhere, and surely other content that you push is also suppressed. Now you're labeled as a science denier, etc. As a conservative. Your score, it's literally called your vaccine hesitancy score. So we're going to talk more another day about that, like with Facebook, because that's crazy, which again is my promotion for MikeSlater.locals.com. Locals is not big tech. It's not run by Silicon Valley. There's no algorithm. You're not bombarded with nonsense all the time. That's where we put everything. MikeSlater.locals.com. We're off big tech. But anyway, this term, vaccine hesitancy, I keep hearing it everywhere, the vaccine hesitant. This is the next battle. These progressives, they've been in control. They've had this power trip for over a year now. They're not just going to give it up overnight. And now they're going to take their power trip and apply it to vaccines and forcing you to get one. Santa Clara County in California is requiring businesses to determine, whether or not you're vaccinated. This is in Oregon. Oregon's the first state to require vaccination proof for maskless entry into businesses, workplaces, and churches. And all of this is done to try and shame the vaccine hesitant. LA Times yesterday, they wrote, it was actually a pretty good piece though, on how to convince someone to get the vaccine. There's the headline. How do you convince someone? And I say it's a good piece because well, let me say this first. The goal from the left, there's no science driving this. It's a cult at this point. The goal is to get everyone vaccinated. Everyone. Every single person. Now, there's no scientific reason for that, right? So why? Why do they want to get every person vaccinated? What's the deal with that? So they wrote this article about how to convince your right-wing anti-vaccine friend on how to get it. And they do a good job in the sense of they used a lot of the things that I talk about in my book, How to Change Someone's Mind, available on Amazon.com right now for $5. And this is what they say. They say, if you want them to change their mind, you cannot approach the conversation as a debate in which, if your case is presented with sufficient evidence, your opponent loses and is sentenced to mandatory vaccination. They go on and say it has to come from a place of love, not hostility. That's all very true. Right? So they give these tips about how if you're talking to someone who doesn't want to get the vaccine, you got to meet them where they are. You have to listen to them, right? You can't just crush them with the facts, right? That's not going to get someone to change their mind. And it's a good article on that, right? But here's the thing with it, and here's what I think a lot of these people are missing. I'm not vaccine hesitant. I'm not getting it. I'm not like, oh, will I, won't I? Oh, I don't know. Like, I think, maybe. No, I'm just not getting it. I'm vaccine decided. I'm not hesitant about it. I'm not doing it. I'm team no vax. For me, you do whatever you want. And I've said this a billion times, maybe a billion on the radio, maybe not enough here on the TV. If you're older, you should definitely get it, right? If you're over, I don't know what age you want it, like 65. You're over 65, you should definitely get it. My mom, I was like, Mom, you like definitely get the vaccine. If you're middle-aged, like, yeah, sure, you probably get it, I guess, right? If you're overweight or have some other pre-existing condition or whatever, you should probably get it. Go ahead and get it. If you're younger, maybe you don't need to get it. Or do get it, I don't care. That's fine. Like if you get it, I'm not gonna shame you for getting it. Go get it, I don't care. But also don't shame me and those who choose not to get it. Whatever happened to my body, my choice, huh? My body, my choice, isn't that the thing? My body, my choice. Is my body, my choice only applicable if you're killing a baby? That's important to note. If that, I need to know that moving forward, right? Like my body, my choice, only a thing, only true if you're killing a baby. If you're talking about a vaccine, that's not applicable anymore. It's not your body, not your choice anymore. Good to know. Some of the arguments in the LA Times, they say you should go to this person who's vaccine hesitant and say, hey, getting vaccinated means that you can hug your parents again. No, my mom was just in town. She lives on the other side of the country. She just left yesterday. She was here for a couple days. She got vaccinated, so I hugged her. Right, like she's not getting. I can't give it to her. She's vaccinated, so that's not an argument. So the 2 points here. The safety of the vaccine. It's new. You can't tell me that you know what this vaccine does 2 years after you get it. No one knows for sure. It's not even a year, or maybe it's like a year. I don't know when they started the trials. Probably a year ago. Okay, great. So it's safe. Let's even go with that. Safe after a year. What about year 2? No one knows. Is it worth the risk? Well, if you're 70, yeah. If you're overweight, yeah, it is. If I'm 36 and healthy, no. Don't treat me like I'm an ignorant idiot over here. I'm making a rational, calculated risk analysis. My chance of getting sick from the virus, I'm weighing that against the chance of there being a problem with the vaccine years down the road. This is a completely rational cost-benefit analysis that I'm making. I'm not hesitant about it. I made my mind up. My mom, older, if she gets the virus, very bad. So definitely worth the risk of the vaccine. This analysis makes perfect sense. This should not be like some weird fringe thought here. And I don't need to get it. And here's the other thing. So I don't need to get it. Also, if I choose not to get the vaccine and I get COVID, that's on me. You don't need to feel bad for me. You don't need to do it for my protection. Someone on the radio show sent me an email and they said, Slater, I want you to get it for your safety. Oh, listen, that's very sweet of you. Very kind. I appreciate your thought. I don't need your sympathy. I don't need your help or support with this. If I get it, I'll get sick. That's fine. And you can laugh over my sick body, right? I'll be sick in bed or whatever, or probably I'll get the sniffles or nothing most of the time. But if I even go in the hospital, you can laugh and laugh and laugh. I told you. It's fine. I don't need anything from you. So it's not only that I don't need to get the vaccine. You don't need me to get it. Which goes back to my thing. Why are these progressives so adamant that every single person get vaccinated? You don't need that from me. We're at, what, like 70% vaccinated? I think in California, and it's different every state and even regions within the states or whatever. But in California, I think it's 50% of people are fully vaccinated. So they've got 2 doses and waited 2 weeks. 50%, that's amazing. And then 20% are partially vaccinated, which is almost fully vaccinated, right? That's still super protected. And then you also got to include all the other people who've already had COVID and therefore have the antibodies from it, who are immune as well. So we're done. So again, the real question is, why are you so obsessed with me getting the vaccine? I like using the left's own language against them, right? This is what they do. They do this new thing. They say, why are you so obsessed? Right? Whenever you criticize something, they come back with that. So you're like, AOC will be on the cover of People magazine and Vogue, and she'll say something, and I'll come back and I'll be like, you know, I don't agree with what AOC said about Social Security. Why are you so obsessed with her? It's like, oh, I don't know. She was on the cover of People magazine talking about something that's wrong. I'm like, or I'll say, like, I don't think we should be teaching transgenderism to 5-year-olds. Oh, you and you conservatives, why are you so obsessed with trans kids? It's like, oh, I don't know, you're fundamentally altering like a foundational truth of society that men and women exist and we shouldn't be teaching this to 5-year-olds. Oh, why are you so obsessed? So I throw it back at you. Why are you so obsessed that I get vaccinated? Why are you so obsessed? It's not for your safety. You're vaccinated. End of story. You're vaccinated. You're protected. It doesn't require I get vaccinated too. So why are you so obsessed with my body? My body, my choice. We're at herd immunity. It's over. So get over it. I don't need to take the vaccine. I'm okay with a disapproving eye roll. Right? I get that every year. I don't get the flu vaccine. Right? But I'm not vaccine hesitant. I'm vaccine decided. And there's no reason for you to further interfere with my bodily autonomy, to force me to do an unnecessary thing, to protect me from something where there's an infinitesimally small risk of getting sick from. You get it if you want. If you get it, I'm glad you get it. I don't need it. And I would trust the motives of these vaccine pushers if they also talked about natural immunity. Again, people who have had COVID and who have made antibodies and are immune naturally. But there's no consideration of that ever. Certainly before we vaccinate kids, we should test them to see if they've already had antibodies and therefore have immunity already. Why would we risk any vaccine in them when there's no need for it at all? It doesn't make it. Rand Paul said he's not getting vaccinated. He said, until they show me evidence that people who have already had the infection are dying in large numbers or being hospitalized or getting sick, like I'm not getting vaccinated. I've already had disease, I already have natural immunity. He said in a free country, you would think people would honor the idea that each individual will be able to make the medical decision. But we don't, apparently. So I gotta go. If you want the vaccine, great, go get it. But lay off me. I'm not putting a Bill Gates microchip in my body. Oh, Slater, why? That's not helpful. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word. Hey, Slater Crusaders, if you're watching this now, which you are, then you are very familiar with critical race theory and how the left has framed racism in America today and how it's teaching it to our kids. And it's that race is everything. Race is who you are, the entirety of who you are, your existence. And it can either, well, if you're of a minority race, then you can't achieve. Everything's stacked against you. There's nothing you can do. Everything's rigged against you. If you're white, everything's in your favor, etc. Everything has to be viewed through the lens of race. That is the wrong way to deal with racism. It's racist. Emily Cow is here from the Heritage Foundation. She wrote a great article, The Right Way to Fight Racism. Emily, how are you? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Oh, there you go. Yes, I can hear you now. Let me just throw it to you, Emily. What's the right way to fight racism?
Is through impartiality. By that, I mean treating every individual as an individual, looking at what is on the inside, the content of our character, or in the case of college admissions, our academic ability and achievement. The wrong way is to judge people by the color of their skin. That's not an idea that I came up with, obviously. That's something that Martin Luther King talked about. That's something that is in the Declaration of Independence. And America isn't perfect, but we have the right ideas, and we need to go back to those right ideas.
Have these activists who argue the opposite to what you just said, have they addressed Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech specifically. I haven't heard them ever talk about that, because what we're doing now is the exact polar opposite of what you just articulated and what Martin Luther King Jr. articulated. Do they address that or just ignore it?
So I think that the advocates of critical race theory and Black Lives Matter actually, unfortunately, reject the ideas that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated for us. We could all be treated not by the color of our skin, but content of our character. They see that as enough to address what they see as systemic racism. They think that the entire system that America was built on needs to be.
Emily, I'm sorry, we have a bad connection here, ma'am. I apologize. We're going to have to try again here. Let me forward you to Emily's article on the Heritage Foundation, The Right Way to Fight Racism, because she has 2 points here that I will make for her. She had her car keyed. Now, you could assume that that was a racist attack, and you can assume the motives of the people who did it, and you can paint any story you want about it. But is it true? Did they really do that because they hate Chinese people, Asian people, the Chinese government, her? What's their motive? Penn State, it was a couple weeks ago, 2 black professors found a noose hanging in the woods behind them. And it was this whole thing. And the president of Penn State came out and protests, marches, speeches, and how this is outrageous and we need professors and everybody to feel safe in the community, and how this hate crime of a noose hanging from the whatever. And this story ended one of the 2 ways that it always ends. Either the professors hung the noose there themselves, or it was just some rope hanging from a tree, some random rope hanging from a tree. Which do you think it was? It's one of those 2. That's always what, it's never a noose. There's no nooses ever hanging from trees anywhere, right? It turns out after an investigation, it was just a rope hanging from a tree. That didn't even look anything like a noose, right? So apparently some guy, the neighbor, cut down a swing, and he threw the swing and the rope into the woods, and it just like got stuck on a branch, right? These nooses never, they don't even look like, these ropes never even look like nooses. I don't think these people even know what a noose looks like. but if you see race everywhere, this is a serious point. If all you do is see race, then everywhere you look, you see nooses. Every rope you see is a noose. That phone charger over there, it's in a knot. It kind of looks like a noose. Everything you see is a noose all the time, if that's how you choose to see life. And one of Emily's points, and I hope I'm echoing this properly, maybe I shouldn't speak on behalf of her, I'll speak on behalf of me. That's a terrible way to live your life. And it's not true. It's not America. Certainly not, anything that's an excuse to keep you down. Those forces don't exist. And here's Emily's second point, and I will speak for her on this one. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He said the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And she says this, with honesty and moral clarity, he recognized his own heart was not immune to the temptations of hate and evil. None of us are. No individual, no country is above it. The people who are anti-racist think that they have no hate and evil in their hearts. It's as prideful as you can be. We need much more humility in this entire conversation. We need to assume the best of people. We need to be grateful. We need to be full of gratitude that we live in the greatest country and the least racist country ever to exist. And we need to recognize our own sins and instead take a posture of humility. That's how you fight racism in America. True story. Mike Slater. Coming up next, we'll talk about HR1 and S1, which are those voting rights bills, but they also have a really important tie to freedom of speech. Yesterday we talked about freedom of religion. Today we'll talk about freedom of speech. Coming up next. True story. Mike Slater. Spread the word.
Well, I'm just a bill, yeah, I'm only a bill, and I'm sitting here on Capitol Hill. Oh yeah, there's a bill here in the Senate, and it's called the People Act. Gives power to the voter, and not those corporate hacks. Now this bill will make it easy for voters to have their say. So let's make elections fairer and pass S1 today.
That was completely natural. It's very, look how human John Hickenlooper is. He can play the banjo. He's just like one of us. He's one of the people. Who are these handlers that think that that was a good thing and a good idea to spread? Just advice to everyone: don't try to go viral. If you're trying too hard, it's not gonna work. We've talked a lot about HR1 and S1. That's what he's talking about right there. Actually, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer both come to the Senate floor to talk about this. Is pretty rare for both the leaders to come and speak out against it. So it's a big deal to them. It's a voting reform bill, but it also has major free speech implications here, which we need to obviously defend, and we need to actively defend because we can't rest on our laurels anymore. Yesterday we talked about the importance of freedom of religion with Sam Brownback. Today we're going to talk about the importance of freedom of speech. We can't forget it. We must advocate for it. Here is Mitch McConnell on the Senate floor.
A partisan power grab in search of a justification. That's what we have here. There's no crisis. Our Democratic friends just want the power to rewire our democracy on a partisan basis. It would let Washington Democrats act like a nationwide board of elections on steroids, neutering popular things like voter ID and forcing legalized ballot harvesting onto all 50 states. This partisan power grab failed to advance out of committee for the same reason it must never, ever become law as currently written. It will shatter public confidence in our democracy if the Democratic Party decides it can rig the rules.
Bradley A. Smith, chairman of the Institute for Free Speech. Mr. Smith, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you, Mike?
Good. Good to talk to you. You got a banjo on you? You ready to bring out the banjo and play a little bit for us?
I do play the banjo, and it didn't even occur to me to bring it on with me this morning.
Wow, that's great. Very impressive. What if you did it? You just totally one-upped Hickenlooper right there. That'd be impressive.
I think about the only thing worse than HR1 and S1 is Hickenlooper's video, or maybe it's vice versa.
It's a way better joke than I came out with. Touche, sir. Let's start with what is the left? What do the Democrats say HR1 and S1 does? What's their best pitch for it?
Well, really in a nutshell, it's kind of there in Hickenlooper's little video. I mean, they say, well, this will end special interest influence. And then they say it will make it easier to vote, and that's going to make a better democracy. And I think on both counts they're wrong. For example, in his little banjo picking, he specifically says this will end PAC influence. And yet, oddly, there's not a thing in the bill that actually even deals with PACs. So it's kind of a the whole bill is just this conglomeration of progressive wish list for elections. Senator McConnell in the clip you showed mentioned a couple things relating to election administration, like legalizing ballot harvesting, doing away with voter ID laws. It would also impose same-day registration with no check. The person just walks into the polling place and says, "Hi, I'm John Smith. I get to vote." But it also has a number of speech-limiting provisions that are very dangerous, and a big public financing component in which your tax dollars, literally billions of your tax dollars, would go to support politicians' campaigns. And the better a politician was at raising small dollar contributions, like, say, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the more money she would get from the federal government to keep running her campaigns.
Oh, interesting. Okay, we definitely need to talk about that. So if I'm right with interpreting, I would almost view it as like two separate things within these bills. You have the voting rights part, like the same-day registration and all that stuff, and then you have the free speech implications. And that's what, obviously, I'd love to talk with you as chairman of the Institute for Free Speech. Let's do it. What are some other examples of limiting freedom of speech? And then we'll build to the public financing. How does this limit freedom of speech?
Well, a couple of things it does is one is it imposes a lot of new rules, mainly in the reporting area, that people will have to start reporting to the government any kind of speech they engage in and who's paying and so on. Now, historically, we've had that for a long time. It's been limited to speech by candidates or efforts to specifically promote the election or defeat of candidates. And now the government's going to impose, under this bill, would impose a new standard in which you would have to report your name and address and so on if you were funding discussion of public affairs, public issues, things that weren't even related to a candidate. It would also then require more disclaimers on small internet ads, which historically have been an area where low budget campaigns, candidates without a lot of money, could compete pretty easily because it doesn't cost a lot to run on the internet, or to run ads on the internet. So now they would impose a bunch of new regulations on that, which is going to benefit incumbents, and it's going to benefit candidates who already have sort of a large presence, like Nancy Pelosi or others in the congressional leadership. And then one of the things it does is all of these new rules would be enforced by a newly partisan Federal Election Commission. Historically, the FEC has had 6 commissioners, 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats. I actually served as chairman of the FEC back in 2004 and was a commissioner for several years in that time period. And they want to do away with that bipartisan proposal, which makes sure that no party can use this as a weapon against its opponents. And they want to make it a 3-2 commission. Of course, President Biden would appoint the first slate of commissioners under this new commission. And so you'd kind of turn the FEC into a partisan weapon to appoint or to enforce a whole new complex system of reporting rules that are going to govern far more speech than has ever before been considered campaign speech.
That one, that's blatant, right? As if the other things aren't blatant either. That one is in your face blatant. Can you run through maybe a hypothetical example or scenario, if this passes, of what this could do to stifle free speech? Can you maybe walk me through what a campaign may be up against or what it would look like for them?
Okay, well, let's suppose that you had an organization. It's kind of what we call social welfare organizations. And those include like the Sierra Club, the NRA, down to small little local groups that are organized to advocate for issues, right? And you want to run some ads. Say you want to buy, a few $1,000s worth of radio ads urging your local congressman to support a piece of legislation. Okay. Under this new law, you would have to determine, does this promote or attack the candidate? And you're saying it doesn't do either. It just tries to urge people to contact him and urge him to support this legislation. But now you would have to state whether it's supporting or opposing the candidate. Moreover, then you're going to have to announce who all your donors are and put them on a public list again with their home addresses and all that sort of thing. So these donors are going to sit there and say, well, wait a minute, I don't oppose candidate, my Congressman Jones. I just wanted him to support this bill, but he's going to now be listed as opposing that candidate, funding it. So that's just one example of the sort of information that is both misleading to the public. It may deter some people from wanting to give. It's complex for the organizations involved. They have to decide, does my ad attack him? Does it promote him? What will the court say? What will the partisan Federal Election Commission say? So there's going to be a lot of guesswork and vagueness in it. And we find that historically, there's a lot of empirical data shows that kind of vagueness causes people to simply leave the arena, not risk speaking out on issues that are important to them.
Bradley A. Smith, sir, we got to go because I want to talk about the public financing. Can we come back another day and hear some banjo and talk about public financing? A good 1-2 punch?
I am not going to play banjo for you, but I'd be happy to come back and talk about public financing.
We'll take one of the two. We'll take half of it. Beautiful. Bradley A. Smith, Institute for Free Speech, and he writes at the National Review as well. Bradley, appreciate you, sir.
Thank you, Mike.
How blatant is that changing the board, right? From a 6-member bipartisan 3-3 to a 5-person board, and all 5 would be Joe Biden. Are you kidding me? This thing must never pass, but they're going to try to jam it through. Everything relies on them getting this one passed. HR1, S1. Make sure that it doesn't. True story. Mike Slater, spread the word.